Hey, it's Joe West from the West Barn with
Mike Shimshack.
Today our guest is James Otto, songwriter, artist, producer, amazing vocalist. Before we get started with James, we want to remind you to subscribe and hit notifications wherever you're listening and tell friends about the podcast. Everyone, James Otto.
What's going on, man?
Welcome.
Good to be here.
It's good to be good to have you here. You're one of my favorite performers, favorite artists.
Man,
in 2008, biggest song of the year.
Yeah.
As an artist, bona fide country star. Just Got Started Loving You, which was one of the coolest tunes I've ever heard.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. It was really good to me. I can't complain at all.
Yeah, and a lot of people won't know this, but you're not a. I was going to say you're a better songwriter, but you're one of these guys that whenever you sing, it's just like, I want to get up and bust my guitar over my knee. Like, we play in a lot of like what they're called hit songwriter rounds, where you just sit and play your acoustic and tell the story behind writing a hit song, and then you perform it for the people. It's a really great show, and we do that all over the country. Me and James have flown around doing that. And I'll find that, I'll be in some auditorium in Miami, and I have Jeffrey Steele to my left, and I have James Otto to my right. And I'm just like, I didn't think this out very well.
Feeling self-conscious.
I was trying to say you're an even better songwriter. You're such a great songwriter, man.
Thanks, man.
In Keller, I mean, I wish you had recorded that. I bet you wish you had recorded that.
Yeah, me too. Absolutely. Yeah, the trajectory of my artist career could have been totally different. I always think that and go, things are meant to happen the way they're meant to happen too. You know what I mean? I was at a record label at the time that went through 3 different heads at the record label while I was there, and I go, well, if I'd have cut in Color, what if I was proud of my second and third singles as well as Just Got Started Loving You, but it was under a different leadership at the label, and you just become a different priority based on who's at the top. You know what I mean? So it could have been lost to history, and I'm awfully proud of In Color either way, and Jamey Johnson absolutely crushed it.
He was a great voice for that. But hearing you sing it in rounds, it's like, it is, I can't imagine it being any better.
Oh, thanks, man.
So who'd you write that with? You wrote it with Jamey?
Yeah, and Lee Thomas Miller.
Lee Thomas Miller.
Yeah.
Lee's great too, man.
What a fantastic writer he is. And just consistently great songs and man, just making it happen year after year.
That guy's funny, surprisingly funny.
He really is funny, yeah.
We flew down and did a show in Austin, me, him, and Win Varble. We flew down privately.
What a funny guy, Win Varble.
Win Varble's funny all the time.
Oh, my God.
Just as funny. Like, there's as many jokes off stage as there are on.
Yes.
And I had made a comment, we're playing this, was it? Yeah, it was in Austin. And I just felt like I was between the Smothers Brothers. These guys were like,
oh, man.
They were so funny that I could barely, I had to like recoup. You're crying,
laughing,
and then you've got to
time.
like play some little ballad that you wrote for your kid or something. But those guys, it was so funny and so good. And did you write Just Started Loving?
I did. I wrote Just Got Started Loving You with D. Vincent Williams and Jim Femino.
And that was produced by
John Rich.
By John Rich.
Yeah.
We've had him on the podcast. The production on that song was really great. Warner Brothers had reached out to me to do a hot AC version. I think I've told you this.
Yeah.
They sent over all the tracks to that song. So this is whenever I had a loft on Music Row that was kind of.
I don't want to get them to send me the tracks. Can I get them from you?
I bet you I have them.
I'd like to have those.
It may be on like a DDS3 backup or something.
I don't care. I'd like to have them. That's amazing.
I'll look for them and I'll let you know. So they sent me those tracks, and as we were just going to make an AC version of it, so it was going to feel a little bit more. Again, that song felt so soul anyhow.
Yeah,
I mean, it probably could have just gone out with the original mix. So we did a version of it, but I remember going through those tracks and just being like, man, these are the right parts. There's not a wasted Rhodes part, or was it a Rhodes or
it was a Whirly.
A Whirly, right?
Wurlitzer,
There's not a wasted part on there. It's like every note matters.
Yeah,
man. Groove and.
Yeah, there's so much magic that can happen in the studio with the right musicians and the right song and the right producer behind the desk. It makes a big difference. There's so much magic that gets caught when a hit record gets made.
I was watching a Steely Dan. They were talking about recording Peg. It's like classic albums.
Yeah,
it's incredible. You got to watch it. It's on YouTube. But they were talking. It was Rainey, the bass player. Chuck Rainey. And one of the Murata brothers, not Jerry, but Rick Murata played drums on that. But they would say, like, they would do this thing where they bring a band in and we record a song, and then they just bring in a totally different band. It wasn't like musical chairs; it was musical bands with Steely Dan.
That's so crazy, man.
And that's true, though. It's like some days you get what you got in the studio, and sometimes it's like they're all competent. You could make a hit record every day on every session. It could
Without
go
a
up
doubt.
the charts.
Right.
But there are those moments that even the guys that know all the recipes to that stuff, they're still like, whoa, what is going on right now?
There's magic that happens.
And it was captured on that song.
Yeah, man. Well, and that's the thing is that if you did take different bands and cut the exact same song, you could have infinite amount of different results because the parts would be different. They would think of the parts differently.
We were just talking about with Mark Hill about this, where there's a chemistry that happens when you play in a linear session, not track built one guy at a time, where that everybody is kind of like they say like the forest, the rainforest, all the roots talk to one another. It's like there's this subliminal thing that happens, and the whole band starts to become one organism.
Yes,
and that can vary. It's it's the intangible. Even the pros that have done it for 100 years and that know everything, they still go in there and they're smart enough to recognize that they need to chill out and let that happen. Yeah,
man, absolutely. Well, one of the great things, like on that track, we had the rhythm section happen and had that great feel that's underneath that song that's happening, and then Jonathan Yudkin came up with that fiddle part, that signature lick that happens on top of it. That would be a different song without that lick.
Yeah.
I have versions of Just Got Started Loving You without that lick, and it's nowhere near as catchy.
Right.
And when I first heard it, I was like, man, that sounds a little corny to me. And I said that out loud. I remember saying it out loud, and it probably hurt Jonathan's feelings. And John Rich was like, man, I think you should live with that for a second. That really feels memorable to me. And man, I swear, I don't think it would have been the hit it was without that.
That's a good producer, by the way.
Yeah. It is.
It isn't like, hey, man, shut up.
Exactly.
It's like, hey, man, why don't you live with it?
But it's a cool artist, too. To go, okay, cool, I'll trust you. Let me give it.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
that's not often either.
Well, going in there with John was a close friend of mine and somebody that I trusted his opinion. He'd already had more hits than I'd ever been a part of, and I trusted his opinion.
Well, that's why you don't let people in the room. People say, hey, how do I break in? They come to town and they say, hey, can I write with you? And I'm like, you don't get to write with Mike Shimshack the day you show up in town. He's not your people.
Right.
It's not like an arrogance thing, but it's like you got to find your people.
That's it.
That you trust, and then go do great things. Find ways to make great recordings, and then someone like Shimshack will say, hey, I think I can make that better.
Yes,
right? And it's like, hey, once they get into the room, they're filtered out.
They can bring out the greatness.
You don't have to tell anybody to shut the fuck up.
Right.
Because
although I do like to do that sometimes.
Well, it's just not like they've already cleared that bar where it's like, hey, if you're in the room, I want to hear what you have to say. Mutual respect.
That's exactly right.
And that song was the biggest song of 2008. How long was it at number one?
Oh, well, I think it took 2 weeks. It was 2 weeks at number one, and it took 9 months to get there. So
just what you want.
I mean, that's exactly what you want. That super slow climb, but that whole time is like you're digging into everything you can find and praying to God that it doesn't fall off the charts. Right? You're looking for anything you can to keep it pushing because it could literally have died at any one of those months.
What was the vibe like when you turned that song in? Like, did people know what that song was? That's a copyright. That's a genuine copyright.
That's a funny thing that you say that because we cut probably 25 songs for that album. And I turned that song in a year and a half before, or like probably a year before we ever chose a single and went to radio. And they all said, well, we knew as soon as we heard it, it was a hit. And that is not even close to true, man.
After the number one party, they all say that.
Absolutely. Like, nobody knew that was the song. We all thought it sounded like a hit. But there was a lot of songs we thought sounded like hits. You know what I mean? And then once that one finally rose to the top, it took a couple more turns around in the studio before anybody ever picked it, though. You know what I mean? So it was interesting.
That's funny because you said it took 9 months. I would have had the number one song of 2008 if someone hadn't signed James Otto. I had the number two song of 2008.
And with Jimmy Wayne, right?
With Jimmy Wayne. And it took 52 weeks to get to number one.
Goodness, that's a long time.
And I tell you what, every week, this is what it looks like. You don't realize this because people watch the charts as a songwriter and they don't understand it. You see the charts totally differently when you have a song that's going through the charts.
Yes.
So now it's like one of those 3D like art things where your eyes focus and then you see everything in 3D. So here's what it is. You get a call and they say, these are the ads for the week. Ads meaning how many stations added it. And either to get a Billboard #1 or a media-based #1, BDS or whatever they were calling them, they have 136 stations on one, 126 on the other. They kind of say, hey, if you get the #1 on these biggest stations, that means the rest of the world's playing you and you're #1. So you watch to see these ads. And every week, the first week we got 7 ads. And I remember thinking, that's really good. If you're Keith Urban, you get 40.
Yeah, right. You're right. When you're a new act.
And if you're James Otto, your second song probably got 30, 40 ads the first week.
Yeah.
But as a little baby band with coming up with, just got started loving you.
You're fighting for every one of them.
It's 3 ads.
Yeah.
It's 4 ads. And that's how it takes 52 weeks. As a kid, I thought, hey, I've been starting to hear this song. It's got critical mass on the radio. And then 3 weeks later, it's #1. And I just assumed it's been out for 3 weeks.
And during that time, you're out there working radio every morning and all day long. You're visiting radio stations all across the country.
Sometimes not on air.
Well, yeah, right. Yeah,
right?
Sometimes you're just like literally playing the break room.
Yeah.
And the PD's got his arms folded, sitting there in the corner, hating that he's even there.
Don't even get to get on the radio.
Because he's seen 10 other guys that week that are trying to get on. You know what I mean? So
and you buy the donuts and coffee, and you recoup that.
Yeah.
You fly all around. Your radio rep gets paid, and all this money is getting recouped, and you're just playing in back offices or whatever, in hopes that they'll add this song.
That's right. And back in the glamour days, it wasn't you were bringing coffee and donuts. Like back in the heyday of the music business, you were taking PDs out to strip clubs and buying steak dinners and all that stuff. There's no money for all that anymore. They can't do any of that. Yeah, I mean, it was like a real thing. Now you're literally like the coffee guy. You're bringing coffee and donuts and hoping that they haven't already had some that morning.
And there's this little tricky thing that they do. So you get into the top 5. The top 5 is where the money is, the real money. Used to be that if you had a top 20, it would make about 25 grand. If you could get into the top 10, maybe it was 100 grand. If you get into the top 5, you're going to make maybe $1 million from radio performance royalties on your hit song.
Total. Like that's not just per person. That's like
whole copyright.
Yeah, the whole copyright. Yeah.
And it gets split between you and your publishers.
Yep.
So all that money and when you look at the reality of what it takes to get a song to #1, it doesn't just go there. They have these little schemes that when you get in the top 5, they start going for the Bobby Bones show so that they can get syndicated spins. So now they got Bobby to add it, and it just got you a jump of like 500 spins rather than the one spin, right?
Yeah, and then once you got that Bobby spin the one week, how do you make those up the next week when Bobby's not playing it? Do you know what I mean? Where do you find those spins so that you don't drop back? Because you will if you don't pick those up, those syndicated spins.
It's like a game of Stratego, right?
Oh, man, absolutely. That's a tough game to play, man.
And you've got to have a record company that's committed to saying it's going to #1. Because if they don't, it's never going there.
Never.
I was told that for Jimmy Wayne's, did I say it was the second biggest song in 2008?
Yeah,
I can't remember what it was behind. So I was told for Jimmy's song to get to #1, it was $750,000 spent at radio promotion.
Wow. And it doesn't surprise me one bit, which is unbelievable. That the songwriters might make that $1 million, but it took $750,000 to actually get that song up the charts.
And keep in mind that was paid for the record company who doesn't see that $1 million.
Who doesn't see that money from your copyright. They don't get a piece of that. So they're making it up off of sales, and now with 360 deals, they're making it up off of merch and touring and everything else. So they've got a place to make that money. But man, $750,000 to work a record up to #1.
Right.
That's just
where does that money go?
Unbelievable.
You know where it goes? It goes to gas cards. Yeah. Hey, we're giving away gas cards. We're giving away an Apple a day. Monday we're giving away iPhone. Tuesday an iPad. Thursday a Mac Pro.
Right.
And you're paying for it.
Payola, just in different ways. They just call it something else.
And then they spin your record at 3:00 in the morning.
That's exactly right. Yep.
Man, you think about what it took to get your song up there. And it's like, dude, I cannot believe that you're not the biggest thing in country music. As an artist, as a songwriter,
he is.
As a songwriter, you're killing it. And we'll talk about all the other hit songs you've written for other people, which is the ultimate thing, because artists always want to be known as a songwriter. You were always a songwriter.
Well, thank you for saying that, man. I appreciate it. I moved to town, and I guess I didn't read enough liner notes of country albums coming to town because I thought you had to be a writer in order to be an artist. I just thought it was part and parcel. You know what I mean? I thought for sure George Strait wrote all those songs.
Right.
And I didn't know that he didn't until I moved to Nashville, and I discovered that songwriters used to be a large collection of songwriters that are writing those songs and writing those hits. And I figured it out. I started going to those songwriters clubs, and I started, watching masters like Tony Lane and Reese Wilson and Whitey Schaefer and all these guys that I knew all those songs. I started hearing them playing them, and I was like, man, I want to do that. I want to be part of that and figure that out. And so
it's almost a curse that you sound so good. No, I had written with Hillary Lindsay, and I used to say, hey, sing this line.
She's got an amazing voice.
Sing this line to the co-write because I want to like it. Because
Right.
if I sing it, none of you guys are going to like it.
Same.
You sing it, and it's
Right.
it's almost like your ability. You're a great guitar player too. Your guitar tone is killer. I guess it's those giant logs you
man.
have for fingers.
Yeah.
He plays a big Gibson J200, and when he plays it, it just rings to the PA, and then he sings, and he sings in Keller, which is maybe song of the century. I mean, is there a better written song than that?
Oh, well.
That's a real deal copyright.
That's a deal. Like when you hear people talk about The House That Built Me, find me someone
What an
who's going to
amazing
say that's a
song.
shitty song. Find
No
me somebody
one.
who's going to shit
In
on that
Color's
song.
that
I wish
good,
to God
though.
I'd
In
written
Color's that good.
In Keller is
Yeah.
that good. You won't find anybody on the list saying, "Oh, that's a bullshit song."
Yeah. And songwriters are very critical too. You know what I mean? We're a critical bunch of people. So
I'm sure you've told this story 1,000 times, so I apologize, but I got to know. Can you talk about the inception of that song
yeah.
and the writing session?
It was nominated for a Grammy.
Yeah,
and it won Song of the Year, ACM Song of the Year.
It won ACM and CMA Song of the Year and nominated for Song of the Year at the Grammys. And I think we lost to Jennifer Nettles and Sugarland. Why Don't You Stay, I think was the song.
Oh, Stay. Yeah. That was a good song.
Which was a great song.
It's not as good as in Keller. Not even close.
Well, we didn't have the votes that year,
I'm going to go on the record. I'm going to do something really controversial here.
It was a good song. It was a good song, though.
So the inception of the song, though, Jamey had been at my house the night before. Jamey's a good buddy of mine, and he had been at my house, and we were watching UFC fights. I want to say it was Chuck Liddell when Rampage Jackson, it was like watching the Easter Bunny get killed on television. You know what I mean? Rampage Jackson just tore through him, Chuck Liddell, and the next day, it's like a God thing. You know what I mean? I was supposed to write with somebody. Jamey was supposed to write with somebody. And my writer canceled, and I just texted Jamey. I said, hey, look, what are you doing? You want to get together and write a song today? He said, yeah, I'm writing with Lee Miller. Why don't you come join us? And I hopped in my truck. I drove over there, and they had the hook in Color, but nothing was happening. They didn't have a melody. They couldn't figure out a way forward. And I started playing the verse melody, or the verse guitar part, and started singing the melody, and the lyric just started happening. It happened within 4 hours and was done. So it was like I said, a God thing. I wasn't supposed to be there, but I was supposed to be there. You know what I mean? That's not what my day had planned on the schedule, but God had a different plan for me.
Is that in standard tuning?
It is. I'm
going to grab my guitar. Can I grab my guitar?
Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
That's an incredible song.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it was interesting that day, to think that.
Did you know at the end, like, this is
we all knew we had something
special?
We ran across the street over to Jamey's publisher and sat down with him, and we're like, and Jamey's like, hey, we're not fucking around. This is a hit. Like, you need to listen to this. And I love this guitar. It's such an incredible guitar. So really, it started this way, and it was exactly this. But it was in tune. And then he started singing that melody.
Wow.
Or I sang the melody. I started humming the melody. And then the lyrics started happening. We started talking about what that meant to them.
Who came up with the idea about, like, man, you should have seen it in Keller?
I think, if I remember this correctly, it was a conversation that Jamey had with Whisper and Bill Anderson about photos backstage at the Opry, and I think that's the case. Yeah. That's where it got started. I don't remember exactly how they came up with the hook. It wasn't my hook. It was something that they were talking about when I walked in the room, and I just like, man,
dude. But it's one of those songs. It's like, how did I not write that?
Yeah,
it was
man.
right there in front of me. As a songwriter, every once in a while, a song comes along, you're like, oh man, how did I not write that?
Yeah, man.
It's just the perfect. We sit around all day trying to figure out, hey, what are we writing today?
Yeah. Do you have
we got a title,
good hook,
you got a whatever, what are you thinking?
Yeah, man.
But that one, for the history of recorded music in the entire world, that song hasn't been said.
Yeah, I'm really, truly thankful to be part of that thing. And yeah, those are hard to come by. It's hard to find something to say that hasn't been said. I mean, almost
in a way that's compelling.
Right, yeah.
And not cliche. It's like there's all these songs that you have as beginning songwriters where you do all the first times. And then after you write that song 10 times, because every song gets written 10 times.
At least.
You have to see it. You have to go stand over on the grassy knoll and see it from over there and say it in a way that hasn't been seen, right? You have to, and that's why, like, clever, the best songwriters, they blow you away because they're not going to do that first drawer where the silverware is. They're going to go down a couple where
things that are a little harder to, more meatier, you know, where you can get some real furniture in a room. And
is that in tune enough for you to play it?
You want me to play the song itself?
Yeah, man, if you don't mind.
See.
We'll get a copyright strike.
Yeah,
but you're worth it. If they take the channel down. It's funny because we just got a copyright strike for Jeffrey Steele. And it's obviously a song he wrote, but it's like, they'll hit you with those strikes, man. And you just be like, it's commentary. It's protected by the First Amendment, right? It's what do they call that? It's public commentary. So you could use it even if you didn't write it, but he was the writer on it. So
yeah. So how do you even dispute that?
You just,
if you are the writer on it.
I did dispute it and they cleared it.
Okay. Well, that's cool.
Yeah.
Let me do this here. I said, Grandpa, what's this picture here? It's all black and white, and it ain't real clear. Is that you there? He said, yeah, I was 11, and times were tough back in 35. This is me and Uncle Joe just trying to survive a cotton farm and a Great Depression. And if it looks like we were scared to death, like a couple of kids just trying to save each other, you should have seen it in color. Well, this one he is taking overseas in the middle of hell, 1943, in the wintertime. Almost see my breath. Well, that was my tail gunner, old Johnny McGee. He was a high school teacher from New Orleans, and he had my back right through the day we left. And if it looks like we were scared to death, like a couple of kids just trying to save each other, you should have seen it in color. A picture's worth 1,000 words, but you can't see what those shades of gray keep cover. You should have seen it in color. This one is my favorite one. This is me and Grandma in the summer sun, all dressed up the day we said our vows. You can't tell it here, but it was hot that June. That rose was red and her eyes were blue. And just look at that smile. I was so proud. That's the story of my life, right there in black and white. And if it looks like we were scared to death, like a There you go.
You wrote that, dude. That's a shoot. I mean, dude, that's got everything that you want. I mean, the singing, right? The guitar playing.
I'm like overwhelmed.
The
with all
impeccable song.
The guitar playing, the singing. The song is like the best song I've ever heard in my whole life.
I appreciate it.
I'm not kidding either. That's laughable. It's so good. I can't stop laughing.
It is so organic, that song.
I mean, suck.
There is
it's making me reevaluating my entire career. Oh my God, that was so good. Holy
it sounded really good too. Hopefully it translates, but in the headphones it sounded so good.
The room are awesome too, man. It makes me just want to sing.
There is no pretense in that song. You ever write a line in a song and you're kind of like, that's a little like cock rocky. That's a little like
most of the time I write songs. That's what I feel like.
It's posery.
I looked over at Eli while we were doing it. If those that can't see Eli's like a hardcore kid. He's like a great musician, and I looked over at him. And he's young. How old are you? Like 18. I looked over just to gauge his temperature. He's got his phone. He's like,
dude, it's
translates to everybody.
That is like, people think you spend. There are a lot of people that you spend a lot of time with vocals fixing on records. Not this dude. Like, I've played with him and we've played shows.
Can we make records together? I'm begging you right now on air in front of everybody.
2 hours of perfect vocals like
well,
perfect. Soul, performance, delivery.
There's a lot of did you have a big soul background? I hear the country, but there's a lot of soul in what you do.
Yeah, I love soul music.
Yeah, I can hear it.
I was deeply influenced by 60s black music.
Yeah.
I love Ray Charles. I love Sam and Dave.
I can hear it.
I love, like, Memphis, anything that came out of Memphis in that era, anything that came out of the Muscle Shoals era. Motown was a little more polished than I like, but there's a lot of great music out of there. I really like the gritty, I don't know, where you can feel the pain in the music. You know what I mean? That's the stuff that I love the most. And
you can throw that back there so you can get back on.
I love this guitar, man. I want to hold on to it. I want to take it home with me. What year is that?
55.
God, it's gorgeous. But yeah, I listened to country music my whole life and really love country music. And but I think that country at its best is an interpretation. It's white man's blues.
Oh yeah,
you know what I mean.
Oh yeah.
Today's country music is more pop music, and that's cool too. I'm okay with that. But where I love country music at its best is where it's singing about real life and singing about real pain.
And like the blues, it is all about like experience. And that song is like so authentic. To go back to that, it's like, I believe every word of that song. Yeah. And I don't think like back in the Poison days where every lyric was posed.
Right.
This is what I want you to think of me.
Right.
It is like, this is who I am. It's like such a gut check, such a gut level. It's cool. Such a gut level of like authenticity in that song that there is, and then you perform it like that. It's like,
oh, thanks, man.
I don't know. I'm speechless with that kind of level of talent in songwriting and performance and execution. When do you realize, at what point do you open your mouth and that voice comes out?
It's there. Honestly.
Like 11 years old? I mean, you're a giant dude. We were standing up over there. I'm 6'3", and I was telling the guys, it looks like I should swaddle up into your arms. You're a massive man. You got the beard, the hat. You're 6'4"?
I'm 6'5".
6'5".
300 plus pounds. Yeah, I'm big.
Yeah, I mean, is that like, does tiny, skinny James Otto have that voice?
Yes. Yeah, it may be more resonant now when you're a little bit bigger, and that's actually one of the things that I actually enjoy about it. It gets a little bit deeper. It gets a little bit more weight behind it, per se, you know. And so, yeah, in that part, I don't mind. But it's the you know, walking around and trying to run in the heavier James Otto isn't as much fun.
So I just think that's interesting. Like, at what point do you realize, like, hey, man, I've got an awesome voice?
I was young. I knew. My mom said I was singing in the cradle, and I've sang in some form or another most of my life.
And were people freaking, like nonstop freaking?
I don't remember people freaking out when I was a kid. When I started getting into high school and singing, when most boys wouldn't sing for anything because they're embarrassed, right? They would be too embarrassed to sing even if they could. I was singing and like doing talent shows and that kind of thing. And I think at that point I started noticing that people go, wow, he's got a really great voice, and he's playing guitar too. And you know, at that point, people started paying attention. But like, it was, I was in choir for a couple years, like as a grade schooler. I went to a boys choir. That's the only training I ever had as a singer. You know what I mean? So everything else was just learned, and it was natural. And I see that now in my daughter. My daughter's 10. She has voice lessons, but she naturally has an incredible voice. It's just there. She got more range than anybody else around her. And then for whatever reason, it's just in the blood.
Tone's
it's
good.
there. The tone's incredible.
What is it like, and you've probably done this, but like either at a hockey arena
Yeah.
or at the Ryman, ideally my brain's picturing you at the Ryman.
Yeah.
Standing there in the circle, and it's just like you're doing that thing.
Yeah,
You just
yeah.
did. And it's just like, is there a moment where you're like, I mean, you probably get sick of it because it's you, but is there a moment where you're just like, wow, this is an insane moment?
I try. You try to give into those moments and feel those moments when you're there too. But
And I'm not
also
talking about the moments. I'm talking about your voice.
My voice.
And you, like, hearing it back out of the room and saying, I'm experiencing what I hope they're experiencing, but this is like one of those things. This is incredible.
Well, so what I'll say is I try to get lost in it as much as I want the audience to. If my eyes are closed, it's because I'm trying to feel it and trying to be there in that moment. And I like a really loud monitor. I like to hear my voice loud and clear. I like to hear my guitar coming back at me like it would be out there. I want it to be powerful, and I want to feel that. And so I try to get lost in that thing so I can deliver with as much emotion as I want them to feel. You know what I mean? So I try to do that on stage. Sometimes, yeah, it can be very emotional.
Do you
honestly.
use in-ears? Or you just all...
I hate in-ears monitors.
Yeah, 'cause
I
you don't
can't
feel it the
stand
same
I
way.
want that vibration.
Yeah,
I
you
want
want
that
the
air
vibration.
moving.
Yeah,
and
it's
I've bought a really nice set of in-ear monitors, and I had a really great in-ear engineer out on some of these tours, and man, it feels disconnected from the music.
I get it. It's the feeling.
Yeah.
It's the
I'd
feeling
rather
of
go
air
deaf
move. Yeah.
eventually and enjoy all the years that I have of actually feeling it.
Yeah. And so the artist thing for you still tour all over and
Well, I used to until this year.
until this year. You said you had to cancel over 100 dates.
Yeah, I had like almost 100 dates on the books, and more would have come in, but you know, we literally down to nothing. So I have one show in a couple weeks that I know is a go so far. So we'll see.
Well, so the artist thing is still full tilt for you, but you've now sort of settled into this thing where you're writing a bunch of songs for other people.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, tell us some of the Chris Janson thing.
Got a song. So my other big hit would be Zac Brown. I wrote "No Hurry" with Zac Brown and Wyatt Durrett. We had a number 2 with that, which was great. I had a song called "Holding Her" with Chris Janson.
Right.
Was
Great
the follow up. Yeah, thanks, man. It was the follow up to "Buy Me a Boat," which was a hard thing to follow up, right? When you have like such a huge song like that, and then come out with a ballad right afterwards. Usually, you want a couple of hits in a row and then drop a ballad on them, you know. But we didn't get quite the chart response that we wanted with that, but it's a staple in his show, and he plays it all the time, and it's been a big song for him.
He's a great dude, by the way, right?
He's awesome. Chris is great.
We want to get him on the podcast.
You really should. He's one of the best live performers I've ever seen. He's electric on stage.
I spoke at a sales meeting for a friend of mine who owns a music company, and he had Chris speak the day before me. And those people, you could tell they were affected by that.
Yeah,
dude.
That's great, man.
He opened them up in such a way that it made it easier.
Yeah,
me
Chris
to talk to this
is
guy.
naturally gifted performer and speaker, and
you've known him for a long time. I've been writing with him for a long time.
For a long time, I've known him. I met Chris the year that he came to town. He'd been living in L.A. and doing like a rock thing, and he came into a Music Mafia. This was year. I can't even want to place a year on it, but it was early 2000s.
So Music Mafia, for those who don't know, we talked with John Rich about this. John Rich was probably the ringleader of that, right? I mean,
yeah, him and Kenny and John Nicholson and Corey Gearman were the original.
But you were a big part of that.
I was one of the.
They had the girl
members.
who painted, and it was just sort of this.
Rachel Geis.
It was as close as you were going to come to a weekly
Circus.
sideshow, not even circus. It was like the bearded lady.
Yeah, it was crazy.
It was, you would go to Mercury Lounge and it was just like you didn't know what you were going to experience, but you knew it was going to be 100% creativity coming out of the monitors.
That's what we wanted it to be. The way that Music Mafia worked is it was like King of the Hill style, you know. So as long as you could hold the audience's attention, you got to have the stage. So that brings out a lot of people that want to put on a show. Yeah, you know what I mean? As soon as you start seeing people go, nah, then you're getting yanked from the stage. Somebody's getting out the hook and pulling you off. You know what I mean? So you're going to bring your A game and you're going to tear shit up for sure. You're going to do the best you can to put on a show. And so that attracted a crew of people.
And they were fearless because, like,
100%.
Big and Rich, they're great. But they'll have a guy out, like, with a voice like that and not be like, hey, man, we don't want that guy to. It's not like whenever.
Shows up.
No, in fact, they want to promote that.
When Crappy Band had Van Halen open for him unknowingly, it's like people don't want that. But this was like the bigger, the better.
Right. And
more talent, the better.
That's right. And that's what I loved about Music Mafia was it was all these artists working to help each other. You know what I mean? If the city's not going to, if the machine isn't going to give us power, we're going to take power. We're going to figure it out. We're going to make sure that we get the chance to shine that we deserve, and we're not going to take no for an answer. And you can do that when there's a collective, right? As an individual, it's a little harder to do that. So when you had a couple of people that had a little bit of power, all of a sudden you can start gathering power and start making something happen.
I remember it became a thing that you couldn't ignore.
Yeah.
And if you did ignore it, you weren't like relevant.
Well, and you know, we started getting all of these, we would have celebrities coming out to the shows. And that was like on a Tuesday night in Nashville, Tennessee, there ain't shit happening, right? It was quiet. And this was 20 years ago. So there was nothing happening on a Tuesday night. And we would have whoever's in town. If there's a movie star coming to town, they wanted to come to the Music Mafia because they knew that's where the show was that night. They're going to come out and drink. They're going to smoke some weed. We're going to hang out, and they're going to see some shit, man. You know?
So Chris Janson was a part of that, is what you were saying?
Chris was.
I don't remember.
Chris only came out to one, but when he came out,
player watch.
He showed up with Velvet Revolver. He rolled in a limousine with Velvet
band?
Revolver. Yes.
Wow.
Scott Weiland, Duff McKagan, and those cats came to Music Mafia and played. And he got up on stage.
Wow.
I don't know if you know, like if you were a Stone Temple Pilots fan and know Scott. Scott's an incredible performer.
Unbelievable.
I mean, such an amazing frontman.
Yeah.
Chris was at the front of the stage with Scott, blowing harmonica, and I was like, who the fuck is this kid? Like, what is that? Like, I don't know his name, I don't know who he is, but that dude's a star for sure. And after a couple of years, we started getting to know each other, and
And like you were on a regular writing schedule with him.
We were, yeah, for a long time. We were writing every week.
Now, people's perception is like, oh, how do you get Chris Janson to cut that song? Well, you write with him every week for
that's it.
6 years. That he's like, he can't not cut a song that's great that he wrote with you.
Well, that's right. And we wrote a song about the birth of his daughter and my daughter. We're born about 6 months apart. So we had a common connection. And I had the hook and a guitar part that I was playing for that song and that melody. And he poured out this amazing lyric about how he met his wife, and I had the chorus, basically the chorus idea, and then he had these amazing verses, and it just flowed and popped, man. And I knew right away that we had something great, and that's exactly why he cut it, was because it was personal to him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And as it should be. It's like, if you're a great songwriter, Keith Urban's a great songwriter.
Yeah, he sure is.
There's a lot of folks that if you know they're cutting, like Blake Shelton doesn't really do songwriting. He's written some songs, but like, you have a shot at getting on a record like that.
Yes.
But when a guy like Toby Keith or any of the guys from Chicken Fried, what was the band?
Zac Brown.
Zac Brown Band. Like, those guys write really well, and they write for
really
themselves.
well.
It's personal.
And it doesn't sound like anybody else either.
So you getting a song on a Zac Brown Band record, that's a great song, because they're looking for reasons to cut their songs. They don't want to cut your song.
Right.
It's like you're trying to give them COVID. Whenever you go over there with your songs, they're like, don't touch me.
They're allergic to other people's songs.
It's like, put on your, don't touch me with your MP3. Keep your MP3 off my phone. I don't want to get infected.
I think that's about right, too. I think that they stay fiercely independent, and their music sounds like nobody else because of that.
But it's a testament, like, that's a badass song then.
Yeah,
if you are getting on records from dudes that are that strong as songwriters, and they're cutting your song, they have to cut that song.
Wow. I'm always just thankful to be in the right place at the right time when those things happen. You know what I mean? I try to, my circle of friends, Randy Houser, Jamey Johnson, Wyatt Durrett from ZBB, those cats like that. Those are the people I want to be writing with because those are the people that I gel with and I have a natural connection with. And I'm more than likely going to give them my best ideas. I'm going to, share my innermost thoughts with my friends. And that's where the best songs come from.
Now, are you ever intimidated? Let's say like you have this big hit in 2008 and then all of a sudden the world's open to you and it's like Jeffrey Steele.
Right.
All the monsters want to write with you. All the massive guys. You're going in with Tom Shapiro, you know? So when you sit down...
That's never happened for me.
I can't believe that.
Really?
No, it never happened for me. I never got like the invite into like all of the biggest, best
that blows
circles
me away,
in town. And I don't know why, but it just never happened.
Well, they might have thought you were an artist.
Well,
but they would. That's why they would write with you. But
definitely that is the case. I mean, I think that they go, well, we're going to pitch him our songs. And I'm not sure that I always had the reputation initially of being a songwriter. You know what I mean? But that's how I started in this town. I got my publishing deal long before I ever had a record deal, and it was because I was writing songs and getting holes and cuts. I've had damn near 30 cuts in this town. So
yeah,
that's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, I found that whenever I finally was allowed to write with those guys, that I felt oddly out of place.
Yeah.
Like I didn't feel like they were my people. You ever know this thing? It's like you could share a bag of Funyuns with somebody or drink out of the same soda bottle. But it's like there's that other thing where it's like I feel like I'd be telling one of my dad's friends.
Right.
To like I don't like his idea.
Yeah.
And I just told him to stop booking me with him. And I went through a round where I wrote with all those guys and I was just like I just didn't feel like I could be myself.
Right.
And it was like probably a dumb move. But at the end of the day, if you're not able to be genuine, you're not going to get a song like in Keller.
No.
So it's like, what do you get? And I got a cut. Me and Tom Shapiro got a cut with, on some Lori Morgan record.
Yeah.
And Pam Tillis put a record out. And they cut it, but it was just like, it's just one of those songs. It's a C+. It's just a great song.
Yeah.
And it's like I want to be in the room writing things where it's like if me and Mike get together, it's like I feel like I can say anything to Mike.
That's the way it should be.
If you can't say it,
yeah.
Because even if we call it like lily padding, even if you say this, if you could say something really stupid,
right. And your friend's not going to make fun of you, or if he does, you're not going to take offense because you're friends.
It's breaking balls.
But you get to something genius that would have never gotten to genius because you had to stop at stupid first.
Right. Yeah, I think that's so important, man.
That's so my writing process. Well, I wish it wasn't.
It is. I think it is for anybody. You got to go through the dumb ideas to get to the great ones, right? Yeah. It's a discussion. And if you have the right person to bounce those ideas off of, they're going to be a good sounding board for what is and what isn't. They're going to help you tell the difference because sometimes writing songs, it's hard to tell the difference between the good idea and the great idea unless you have somebody
you're in the middle
throw
of
ideas. That's exactly right.
We were, who was the lead singer for Tonic?
Oh, Emerson Hart.
Emerson Hart, that's right.
Great guy. I was writing with Emerson Hart. And we had written together more for like his rock band thing.
Yeah.
And my buddy Jamey Teachner, who's a great songwriter in Nashville.
I love Jamey.
Me and Jamey, we'd write, and there's no limits. Literally, you can say anything. So we were at Starstruck Studios, Reva's studio, and we're writing in one of the writing rooms, and it was Emerson, me, and Jamey, and we're writing, and me and Jamey are doing this insane thing. And Emerson wanted to write for like pitchable stuff that day.
Sure.
He wanted to write like, I'm going to be a country writer. So we start going bananas. And we wrote this song called Cheaper to Keep Her.
Okay,
You know, and it's just this, it was talking about a bad breakup, and it's like,
Yeah, I had that title too. I wrote that title.
It was a crazy, like, run-on sentence of, just insanity. I get up and go to the bathroom. When I come back, Emerson's gone. And I'm like, hey, what's up? And Jamey said, he's gone, man. He's gone. And so I ran out the front of Starstruck. And Emerson had a muscle car that was, as I remember, it was convertible. He's doing one of these like Dukes of Hazzard.
Oh yeah.
Into the guitar. And I can remember like going, Emerson, we're gonna pull it back.
Yeah.
It's not gonna be this stupid. That's my memory of it. I don't totally know that matches reality, but that was my memory of it. But we ended up with this great song that every time I play it, people are falling out laughing. And it's just the reality is like sometimes you have to go full thermonuclear.
Yes.
And then pull it back to an atomic bomb.
Right.
Like a
Absolutely, man. You just never know where a song's gonna go or what day's gonna go. And that's the fun thing about songwriting is that most days it's gonna be a C+, right? And then you're always shooting for that.
Well, with a guy
B
like
minus.
I think any day the three of us could get together and write a song that could be top 20.
Yeah,
because
I agree.
we know the
I
rules.
agree.
This is like
absolutely.
juggling, right? So
yes, there is a skill to it, without a doubt, and it's a
without any inspiration,
it's a craft.
You're going to have something that's like people are going to have as many thumbs ups as thumb downs for.
Yeah, and then every once in a while you get something great. Those are the few and far between. You know what I mean? And I always felt like I'm really known for my great moments. My good moments aren't as well known. People don't know my good moments. They know the highlights. You know what I mean? And I'm okay with that.
Well, yes. Have you ever had a song that you thought was mediocre that was a hit?
No. All the songs that I love that have been cut, that have been hits of mine, I actually really loved. Just Got Started Loving You was actually out of all those songs, that's probably my least favorite of the songs.
It's funny that you say that because I remember my first hit. I would get angry at people when they would tell me how much they liked that song because I was like, yeah, but I've got all these other songs that are just as good as that song, and you're ignoring. But I learned to just say thank you.
I think that's the thing with Just Got Started Loving You. You know what I mean? I'm known as a one-hit wonder as an artist because of that song right there. And I go, man, I got a body of work over like 4 albums worth of songs and literally 2,000 songs that I've written since I've been in Nashville.
Yeah.
And a lot of them are at least as good as that. You know what I mean? And so...
But then there's this other thing.
You're resentful, but how do you be resentful about a song that's the biggest song in the country?
Yes. I've learned to be thankful. It's like we don't need to have that but part of the conversation.
Yeah, right.
I remember at the #1 party for Do You Believe Me Now, an A&R person came up to me and told me, patted me on the back, said, "I've always loved this song. It's the biggest hit I've ever heard. I knew it from the second I heard it." And I was like, "Thank you." And that person had passed on that song 8 times. But it was like, how much of your career was that? Nashville is a great city, and people I think are genuinely good people. But there is a little bit of a beehive or a shark's den where it's like, you don't really know. Once you start to have a hit, it's all of a sudden you start to blow up. People are calling you that, oh, yeah, I was just thinking about you. Oh, really? You were just thinking about me after I had a hit?
Right.
But like how much of that was like after you had that massive song or after you write in Keller or after you get a Grammy nomination? How much of your like, do you see the people that are sort of like, oh, I like that guy, but I don't know how much I can trust him?
Right. There's plenty of that. I've always... I don't know, there's probably something about my personality where I end up weeding that stuff out. You know what I mean? I don't want to hang out with that.
How do you deal with it then?
How do I deal with it? No is a powerful word. You know what I mean? No, I don't want to do that. No, I don't want to write with that person. I'd rather write one song this week with somebody that I like than write 5 songs with people that I don't really care about.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so I'm going to spend that time, and I'm not always, certainly. I've done plenty of weeks where I'm writing 5 days a week, and it sucks. But what I found out is that if I spend my time with the person that I really like, and put my energy towards that and my best ideas towards that, that's usually going to be the best result.
Yep. Yeah. And now, are you still writing for someone? Or are you writing for yourself?
No, I write. I've had my own publishing. Let's see. I left Warner in 2010. I've had my own publishing ever since. And I own all those songs from the Warner days too. So
wow, amazing.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
100% of my publishing I own. So
that's amazing. Yeah, I was wondering about your book and how you're booking your co-writes. You know, and usually, if people don't know, it's like you got somebody who sits at a publishing house and all they do is fill up your schedule with people that are usually strangers. And then while you're writing with them, you're like, why am I not writing with the people that I write well with that I love?
Right.
And why am I in with this joker that I don't like?
I did for 2 years. The last 2 years I hired a plugger and I had them filling my books. And I was trying to, because I don't go out very often anymore. I'm not in the scene. I'm not.
Expand your network.
Yeah, I want to expand my sphere of influence. You know what I mean? I want to be able to write with some of these younger artists and some of these things that are out there, and these folks are out there, and these other writers, and see what's popping. And I built some legitimately good relationships out of that period of time. I mostly book myself though now. I find that I cancel a lot less when I book it. You know what I mean? Like I'm more likely to show up because I booked something that I wanted to do versus a bunch of shit that I didn't want to do. Yeah. And so I'm a phone call away for anybody that knows me enough to ask to write.
Right.
You know what I mean? I'm a text away from any of my buddies that goes, hey, Jamey Johnson wants me to come ride the bus this weekend and write songs. He's going to call me. Randy Houser, same thing. Hey, I'm getting a new record together. Come write with me. Let's sit down and write songs. That's the way it's going to work.
And are you recording new records? I know that you had a record. We had a writing date a couple years back, and you played me parts of a record that just kind of blew the top off of my head.
Yeah, I have made a couple of records. I've made a couple of records and then didn't do anything with them. And I don't know why that is. I think I got caught up being dad and being at home and.
You need to do a best of records of records that were never released.
Yeah, right. I could. I
They'll
literally
have that
could.
sound from that era where you just were like, oh man, that's from that.
That's what I want to avoid is sound from an era. And I released a single a couple of years ago that I really like the song and really like the feel of it, but it's really going to sound like the era. It's really, you're going to be able to go, man, that was cut in 2012, and this is what was popular. And like, God, I don't want to do that, man. I don't want that. The music that I'm working on right now and the songs that are popping for me personally when I play them, and I know that I see it in my audience, sound like me.
Yeah.
They sound like the soulful country soul guy that I have always tried to project and tried to be. And when I'm that guy, I'm my most genuine version of myself.
I get it.
You know what I mean?
I just think the world needs another James Otto record.
I'm all for it. I want to make one. I also want to figure out a way to make it profitable.
Yeah, that's a great, I love that you think that way, because everyone that comes in and wants to make a record with me is always like, they're so focused on making the record that they have no plan for what they're going to do.
What are you going to do afterwards?
Right. When you have this record.
Yeah, I can
I can appreciate that.
Yeah.
mentality.
I can spend $20,000, $30,000 cutting a record and go, well, am I ever going to see that money back?
Yep.
Would I be better off, putting that money somewhere else?
I tell people all the time, I had someone reach out to me about cutting for about $5,000 aside, cutting 5 things. So it'd be $25,000.
Yeah.
Come and cut 5 things. And I said, first of all, it was a young girl, and I got her parents on the phone, and we talked, and I said, you need to be recording 100 songs.
Yeah.
Not 5 songs.
Right.
You need to take this $25,000.
Yeah.
And you want to go get $250 demos with someone that is your co-writer,
Right.
and do 100 songs.
Right.
And then maybe then you could cut the right 5 songs. Don't give me your money, because there's no back end on that. You don't make $25,000 back.
No.
You will, though.
Well,
I mean, you're the kind of guy.
I think I can make it back.
You're making a record that is like, you pick up right, if you could get the right distribution, it would be a seamless transition from your 2008 number 1. It's like the record would be great. The song would be great. It could go right to radio. I mean, what you did today could have gone on the radio and been a hit.
Well, I want whatever whatever I'm going to do to be at a very high level. And that's also one of the things that part of creating music is creating it and then giving up ownership a little bit of it too, right? You know what I mean? You create it and you got to put it out into the world and go, if you hold on to it too long, you second guess everything you did. Right. And
You'll
so
deconstruct the entire magic.
You totally will. And I'm totally that guy.
That's why you need to surround yourselves with the John Rich that was the guy that you were willing to hear stuff from. And
I need that side of the equation to go, here's the music I made. Let's, release it, give it to people, put it out there and be done with it, and then move on to the next thing. And don't spend too much time thinking about what you made in that period, and just move to the next thing. That for me, artistically, is going to be my best place.
Well, I need another James Otto record.
I'm all for it, brother.
When was the last one released?
I released it was a EP, probably. And not even an EP. It was like a single with a B-side, probably 4 years ago.
We need it.
It's way overdue, and I've got way too many songs. I've got a lot of
talent
songs.
To be. I mean, it's not. God forbid I say you have too much talent to just be a songwriter, because, But it's like you're robbing the world from that voice and that.
I appreciate it,
performance, man. Really good. Where can people find you?
You can find me on all of your platforms: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. I got a YouTube channel you can go check out.
We'll put links all down in the description to that.
Yeah. Also, I'm on a new TV show with my brother-in-law, DeMarcus Family Rules, which is on Netflix. You can find on Netflix. Check it out, DeMarcus Family Rules. It's been a lot of fun. We're doing that. And I do a show every week online. I'm doing the Otto Show, which is basically a podcast. It's a video cast online, and we post it on all the places that you find media.
And do you have a JamesOtto.com?
I do have a JamesOtto.net.
Okay.
Yes. And it's, it's kind of just a hub to send you out to all the other places.
Well, I'm going to go ahead. I'll get, if you could send me those.
Sure,
that little bank of what you want people to be able to get to. We'll make sure that we put them down, and you can link. You can click on links in the description. Thank you, man. What a great day.
Thank you very much.
Yes, you can tell we're both fans. You know what, dude? We're hardened. We are hardened music business people. Yeah. And Mike couldn't even breathe.
That was incredible.
He was so emotional that it brought him to laughter, like nonstop laughter.
Yeah, man.
It's overflowing, the talent that's coming out of you.
Thank you, man.
To
I
be able to do
appreciate
that to these two old crows, come on.
Yeah, I love music. I really do. It's my main passion. It's what's always driven me. So I love when cats that are into the same thing I am like what I'm doing.
They would have no chance. You go to some place like Topeka, Kansas and do that, people be knocked out.
I will. That's probably where I'm going to play next. I'll be out in the middle of nowhere. You'll see me out there.
Well, thank you, brother. We appreciate it. We love you.
Thank you, y'all.
Hey, thank you all for tuning in. We'll see you next time. Signing off from the West Barn.